This is Jets FM on EOFN, as we have a special Jets FM show during the week, like we promised we would have whenever we take on an opponent. Of course, we being the Jets, and we have ourselves a good analyst that has been on this network before, as we do this week, and Jake Arthur, who is with Colts.com. That is the official website of the Indianapolis Colts. Jake, good to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And by the way, a little bit later on, when we're done with Jake and we say goodbye to Jake and Jake shuts off his channel there, then we'll be all alone here on Jets FM. We'll spend a little time with our audience and talk a little bit about, well, it's basically our sorrow time, Jake, and we don't really need to have you on at that for those last few minutes. You've been there. You've
Yeah,
you know how it is.
yeah, we've been there, but I'd still like to revel in the high that we're having after last week, rather than dwelling on things
isn't
that
it so much better?
we've experienced.
Yeah, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you had it's incredible because you were able to go from, you had some miserable times, and then it was Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. And even though there's been some, weak seasons thrown in there, mostly, since Peyton's been gone, still, you've had a dreadful year here or there, which is the reason you were able to land Andrew Luck. But the fact is, you haven't had a stretch probably in a while like we have. But I think we're on like a 10-year stretch now. It can get really bad. So I agree. Isn't it much more appetizing and just fun when your favorite football team and the football team you're covering is winning?
Yeah, it is definitely more fun. Luckily, I haven't really had to cover a stretch like that for the Colts. They haven't really gone through that since the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
So we've had Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck as the franchise quarterback since 1998. So, like you said, there's been some odd off times peppered throughout there, but overall, it's been nice.
All right. Well, let's talk about this Colt team because they are fresh off their first win of the season against Minnesota, and really what stuck out was the defense. And we had talked, of course, in the preseason about how important it was for the Colts if they were going to step up and be a true Super Bowl contender. That not only, of course, Rivers at quarterback, and that's huge, but the defense. The defense has got to be able to step up and be a Super Bowl championship type defense. DeForest Buckner, bringing him in was huge. And then the drafts have been excellent, of course. So what happened last week that really made this defense come together?
Yeah, so last week the defense was definitely the star of the show. They honestly performed pretty well in week one as well. They just weren't able to win the game. I think they cleaned up a lot of mistakes. You weren't getting a lot of those penalties. The coverage was a lot tighter. They were still getting to the quarterback and harassing him. Minnesota just fell apart. It wasn't completely the Colts. Minnesota had their own issues, but the Colts were able to contain the run and then get out to a large enough lead to where Minnesota, for the second week in a row, had to abandon the run. But no, it was really the defense in general is kind of simplistic. It's more player based than scheme based. And the players were just able to do their jobs and rely on their athleticism, especially up front. DeForest Buckner was a monster last week. He's out there throwing guys around like rag dolls. There's a highlight out right now of him literally just tossing the right guard aside and just smoking Kirk Cousins. Cousins got the ball out early enough, luckily for him. But Buckner had 1.5 sacks and a safety last week. So guys just stepped up and performed how they were supposed to, and they didn't shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, not a good time for the Jets to potentially be losing their starting center, Connor McGovern, and going with former Colt Josh Andrews, who might get to start at center against that interior of the Colts and Buckner.
Mm-hmm.
So bad timing for the Jets, good timing for the Colts. But up front, in that front seven, it's not just about Buckner. It's about Darius Leonard, of course, at linebacker, and then the acquisition last year of Justin Houston. So when you can say you have 3 impact players in the front seven, that's a real good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Leonard looked great last week too. I tweeted something out. It was a video of from his inside linebacker spot, just flying downfield and tracking down Alexander Madison in the backfield outside for a tackle for loss. And he was just really rangy, showed off his arm length and speed, and just had another impact Darius Leonard game. Didn't stuff the stat sheet quite yet, but he was all over the place making an impact.
All right, now as far as we'll stay on the defense, and because injuries is going to be a key topic on this show, on this interview, and let's go with Kamika Toure, who anyone in New York familiar with him, played at Rutgers, a key pick for the Colts to again add pressure into that front seven. He's been banged up though the last couple of years. He hasn't played yet this year though. He's on the pup. So what's his status?
Yeah, so he fractured his ankle last year in Week 5 against the Chiefs, and which is a very serious injury. We've seen in other sports, and including the NFL, those really nasty ankle breaks take a while to come back from. And he was making some decent progress, but never enough around training camp to where they were comfortable activating him and putting him full speed with his teammates quite yet. So having not activated him from the offseason pup during camp, week 1 was coming around when they were making their roster decisions and everything. And they just said, he's not quite ready. Let's put him on pup, which of course puts him on the shelf for the first 6 weeks of the season and then kind of reevaluate from there. So I would imagine he's still making some progress, and around week 6 or so, we'll probably know a little more.
Okay, now in the defensive backfield, the team had a serious injury this past week. Hooker goes down. He's had his share of injury problems, so this is just bad news for Hooker and the Colts. What happens now? Because and also I wanted to ask you, because Kerry Willis is Kerry Willis playing the slot, or is that Kenny Moore?
So Kenny Moore is their main slot defender. Kari Willis is the starting strong
Yeah.
safety, and then Hooker was their free
Yeah. So
safety.
what's the situation right now? Because Kenny Moore will go up against Braxton Berrios in that matchup, which again a big edge for the Colts with Crowder out. Looks like again for the Jets this week. But Willis now has to be teamed up with. Will it be Julian Blackman?
Yeah, it certainly looks so. The Colts are fortunate at the depth they have at safety. If they were going to lose a guy like Hooker, Hooker has almost unparalleled playmaking ability and ball skills. But that was far and away his biggest attribute. You can see him growing as a player each year. Last year and through the first couple games of this year, he was becoming more aggressive and was able to read the run game a little more. Coming out of Ohio State, he wasn't a very physical guy, but he definitely added that over the last couple years. However, it's still kind of a work in progress as far as diagnosing offenses and things like that. Julian Blackman, that's his exact strength. His football intelligence and his instincts are very advanced, and he got his first game action last week after Hooker went down, and he looked great. So while yes, he's a rookie, and you have to that's a big thing to take into account. They like him enough to be putting him in that spot. Luckily because of his smarts, it kind of allows him to do things like that. And physically, he looked good too. Kirk Cousins uncorked one about 40 yards downfield on the second time that Blackman was targeted, and he flew up and batted it into the hands of Willis, and Willis intercepted it and took it about 40 yards downfield. And shortly before that, he collided with Irv Smith, one of the Vikings tight ends, and broke up a pass. So physically, he looks great. Mentally, he is ahead of the curve, probably for most rookies.
Okay.
So they're in good hands there.
All right. And Rocky Sin, how's his health?
Yes, this one was a little more strange. He popped up on the report on game day on Sunday. Like they said, he had just kind of come down with a stomach bug and wasn't going to be able to play. He had been evaluated at a local hospital and released, but hasn't been practicing. I'm not sure about today. I still have to check the injury report that comes out later. But as far as we know, they're not really dishing a whole lot on that one. It's just being categorized as a non-football illness to this point. But they did say it was just too early to comment on his playing status for this week.
Okay.
When he went out and wasn't playing last week, TJ Carey stepped into his role. So if Yasin remains out this week, then I imagine it's going to be um, Xavier Rhodes and TJ Carey on the outside with Moore on the inside. In their base defense, when it's just two corners, Kenny Moore takes one of the outside spots along with Rhodes.
Okay. And this is just not a week that the Colts are going to have to worry too much because the Jets have all of their main receivers out, and you'll see Hogan, you'll see Berrios, and you'll see Josh Malone. So
Yeah, that injury report's beefy this week for the Jets. It's not looking
no,
good.
no, and unfortunately, the tight end Chris Herndon, who there was a lot expected after a big rookie year, and he missed most of last year with the suspension and the injuries. He's had 2 games to forget. They were coming back against the Bills, and then he fumbled the football, game over. And then they were coming back against the Niners, trying to come back against the Niners, and he dropped a touchdown pass in the end zone, which would have made it 24-10. Dropped it, field goal, game over. So it's not going good for Sam Darnold's weapons after a couple of weeks so far this season. All right, on offense, Philip Rivers. Explain the because you look on one side and you see, wow, 77%. That's excellent. You can't beat that. But then you see 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so there were a couple interceptions in week 1 that weren't great. The first one, they obviously play the Jaguars twice a year, and defensive coordinator Todd Wash has been there a while. So the Jaguars just threw a completely new wrinkle at them than they were used to seeing in week 1, and it caught them off guard. And Rivers just made kind of an errant throw that was intercepted. The second one, he immediately knew that he just did not look off the safety well enough. And he said his eye discipline was just, not where it needed to be, and that he regretted the throw as soon as it was leaving his hand. Last week, that was kind of just a total fluke interception. He threw it, and it bounced through the tight end's hands and into a defender's hand. So that third one, not on him. Put a little extra mustard on the pass, but that was to Mo Alley Cox, whose hands are like 11 and a half inches wide.
Right.
So, he can handle it. That one was just on the pass catcher.
Okay, and what about Cox? Because he had a monster week, 5 for 111. Is that just one of those weeks?
So that's obviously an enormous game, averaging over 20 yards a catch. So the answer is yes and no. He's obviously not going to have that production every week because that's just otherworldly for a tight end. But I do expect him to continue being more involved. Frank Reich talked after the game about Philip Rivers really liking Mo Alley Cox. He told Reich and offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni. So I don't think it's just a total flash in the pan.
Well, he's getting more snaps than Doyle.
Well, Doyle was out last week.
All right.
So Alley Cox assumed the tight end 1 role, but the Colts often start 2 tight ends anyways.
Got it.
So it's Doyle and Alley Cox anyways. It just so happens when Doyle is out that Mo is going to have a more significant role. While I don't expect those huge games every week, I do think Rivers is going to keep looking Mo's way. So that I think he's here to stay. He's a 3rd-year guy. He was a basketball convert, so he's right in line with his stage of development where they think he should be, and he's a great blocker already. So I just think this year we're finally getting to see him more in the passing game rather than just being stuck as a blocker.
As far as the main weapons for Rivers, T.Y. Hilton, what's going on there? Because I saw another drop myself in the game for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 50% on targets after the first 2 weeks. Wasn't a great year last year for T.Y. Hilton. He is getting a little older. I'm assuming I'm sure the fans are starting to make noise, but what do you think is going on there?
Yeah, there is a little noise going on. Last week, that touchdown, that was a beautiful throw by Philip Rivers. It was going to be a 44-yard touchdown. T.Y. cooked the defender in coverage and gained a lot of separation. just couldn't come down with it.
Well, he'll catch it this week, though. You can be sure as a Jet fan, he will make that catch this week.
Hopefully for him, yeah. No one is harder on himself than he is. He said he's not going to make excuses, but he did completely lose the ball in the sun because the roof was open last week. But it hit him in the chest. He'll want to turn that around. Had a couple drops at the end of week 1, so he's really looking for a bounce back. The guy is confident as all get out, so it's coming. We'll see what version of T.Y. Hilton we get, because we've seen him lead the league in receiving yards before just a few years
Yep.
ago. So, and 2 years ago on one ankle, basically, he led the entire league in receiving yards over the second half of the season. So he's still there. I just think he's got to get out of this little bit of a funk that he's in. But he actually said today that he got a call from his grandmother earlier this week and said that she's just not recognizing the player on TV that she's used to seeing. So he's like, I needed to hear that. She always shoots it
There you
straight with
go.
me. So
All right.
no one wants this to turn around as badly as he does.
All right. Well, as far as Hilton's mates out there, with Campbell now out for a while, it's time for Michael Pittman, right? Because Pittman actually, I noticed, leads the team in snaps. So it's not like he is been a rookie. I mean, statistically, he's not getting a lot of receptions, but he's out there. So with
Mhm.
Campbell now out, of course, you have Pascal had a touchdown last week, but this is a big moment for Pittman, isn't it?
Yeah, he's certainly the number one guy you look at to grab the reins here. They kind of said it's going to be a committee thing, because they don't just have one or two guys who dominate the
Mhm.
targets. It's obviously going to be a good bit of Ty and Mo Alley Cox, Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman, Naheem Hines, especially. Rivers has really been looking for the running backs. I don't think there's been a missed target between a running back through 2 games so
Yeah, I was
far.
surprised. I think I only saw one reception for Hines last week. That was surprising.
Yeah, that one was a bit surprising, but I think he's going to be involved a lot more this week, especially seeing what the 49ers were able to do with their outside zone run
Oh
game
yeah,
last week.
absolutely.
I see Taylor and Hines being the featured two this week. So um, no, it's going to be a team approach. But the thing is, Paris Campbell was primarily their slot receiver, and Pittman is mostly, at least long term, they view him as like their top dog X receiver. But they move everybody around quite a bit, so I don't think it's going to be just one guy that sees his production increase
Would
dramatically.
you advise anybody to pick up Michael Pittman on their fantasy team?
Oh yeah, if there's no better time than right now
I
to
was thinking
do it.
about that. I shouldn't. I was being
Yeah,
coy, but yeah, I was thinking
yeah.
about that
If you
myself
got
because I need a Sutton went out for me, and I need another receiver
Yeah.
in there. And I was thinking, maybe this is a good time to take Pittman because I actually, just so you know, I picked the Colts to win the Super Bowl. I picked them to play
Okay.
Seattle in the Super Bowl. I picked them to beat Seattle, so I have high expectations for the Colts. And I was thinking about Rivers just became available in my league too, and I need a backup to Russell Wilson. So I'm thinking maybe I could pick up Rivers, and I was thinking of Pittman too.
Yeah, it's if you've got a little deeper rosters, it's not
I
a
do,
bad
yeah.
move.
Mhm.
His he had 2 receptions week 1, 4 receptions in week 2. They're getting him a lot of things over the middle and stuff. They're getting him tough catches, so he's holding on to the ball. I think between him and Rivers, they're going to get even more comfortable with each
Yep.
other. So it's worth a stash, I think.
And once again, the offensive line is just continues to go through this amazing health stretch. Uh, Everybody's healthy again so far the first couple of weeks of the season. So we'll see if
Mhm.
they can make that another healthy season. It's early, but so far so good. But what about the running back situation? Because Matt going down, big loss, but another player that has had injury issues before. So this is Jonathan Taylor's team now, as far as the running game is concerned. He only has a 3.5 average. What's the reason for that? Is that I would guess that's a rookie thing.
Well, the average mostly comes from week 1. they weren't really prepared for him to already be carrying the load
Okay.
week one when Marlon Mack went down. I think he averaged like 2.9 or
Yeah, because he
something
was
in that first
3.9 last
game.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was better last week. They pounded the Vikings up the middle quite a bit. Taylor didn't break any huge runs last week. He got 100. He got over 100 yards, but it was mostly 3, 4, 5, 6 yard runs.
Which still
So
works.
it-
As long as you're
yeah,
going
yeah,
forward and not
absolutely.
backwards.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think they accomplished what they set out to do last week. I would expect his yards per carry to jump this
Yeah,
week
I would
if they
too.
run a little more outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's capable of it. He's a big, strong, fast guy. He's also caught the ball really well. A lot of people had that as a big
Yep.
question mark
Yep.
for him because he didn't do that much at Wisconsin until his final year. But here we are. He caught all 6 targets week one. I think it was 2 targets. He caught both last week. So he's 8 for 8 so far.
It shows you that sometimes it is just all about a player not getting the opportunity based on the college scheme, and you don't know
Hmm.
until you got to scout them properly. Obviously, you have your pro days and all that other stuff, and so that's a huge deal because we know, as you said, how much Philip Rivers and this offense likes to throw their running backs. Uh, Lastly, Blankenship. I was a little bit surprised that he actually won the job. Um, he was a good kicker in college. Kicked in a lot of big games. We haven't seen him with that game winner yet. To me, that's the trick because
Hmm.
he's had his share of issues with the big kick in the big moment at Georgia. And I watched him a lot, especially those Alabama games. Matter of fact, the tide turned a couple of years ago in the Georgia Alabama championship game when he missed the kick. Um, but so far so good, 6 out of 7.
Yeah. So his second to last kick in week one kind of missed a chip shot from 20 yards out, but it's almost like it was so close and he tried to adjust too much because it wasn't lined up in the middle. He was lined up on the hashes from 20 yards. So it's honestly kind of a weird kick to make. But he pulled it too much and hit one of the uprights and it just bounced away. But he atoned for that and made his next kick, and then made all 4 field goals last week and both extra
And
points.
that's huge.
So
That's what you got to do when you're a rookie.
yeah, absolutely. I made note of that, and I think a post game article I wrote was you kickers have had just it's been a really off era for kickers over these last couple of years. Guys who we've known to be excellent have just fallen apart. And so it's really not uncommon to just see a kicker go off the deep end. And you got a rookie undrafted free agent who misses a chip shot, and he bounces back and makes his next 5 attempts. So you absolutely love to see that from Blankenship.
All right, Jake, I appreciate it. We'll look to get you on again in a few weeks on another show, definitely when we have an. By the way, did the Colts play the Patriots this year?
Oh God, I don't have my schedule in front of me right now.
You don't recall
I
though,
kind of have
because
I kind of have the cliche one game at a
yeah,
time, but
right.
I don't
Oh, he's
think they
got that
do.
mindset too. All right, Jake. Even the writers have the mindset. One week at a
Yeah.
time. You have to. I was just saying that because we have a Patriot show, but if we don't hook up with you on that show, we'll definitely get you on our regular show anyway. Because as I said, I have
Hmm.
high aspirations for the Colts this season, so hopefully we'll be talking quite a bit, and that includes the postseason.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jake. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks again for
You
having me.
got it.
Yep.
Take care. All right, that is Jake Arthur. And again, want to thank Jake for checking in with us here on Jets FM. Okay, so what do we have? We got about 10, 15 minutes, I guess. There's a couple things I wanted to touch up on, and that had nothing to do with the Colt game. I threw my shots in there regarding the game, what I think is going to happen. Look, the post game show on Sunday night is just it's going to be. I might as well just do it now because I'll be in a better mood. But we all look. That's the thing. And I kind of tried saying this last week. You have to come to reality, and you have to understand what's going on here. Even I read in the post. What was it that I don't even know why somebody's asking Lane Kiffin about the Jets coaching position. I don't even know where that question came from. But somebody asked Lane Kiffin about the Jets job? I don't even know what that's about. The guy just landed in Mississippi to coach the team. He hasn't even coached them yet. And they're asking him about the NFL job. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, and he goes and he makes a comment about the roster. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's I completely understand the frustration, but you have to be able to have common sense when it comes to. It's not about what happened before Joe Douglas, before Adam Gase, before Christopher Johnson. This is a new group. Christopher, Adam, and Joe. It's a new group. And they've only been together for what, 18 games? And look at what they've had personnel-wise. Joe Douglas has had one off season and one draft. It is going to take him 3 off seasons. So it's going to take him not only 3 off seasons, meaning free agency, but 3 drafts. So it's going to take him 2 more. So not next year, but the year after that. So when we get to 2022 and we start doing a show, whether Adam Gase is here or not, this is about Joe Douglas because he is the one that's going to fix this team or not. So in 2022, when we're talking about the Jets, there's not going to be any kissing Joe Douglas butt comments on this show. Preaching patient comments. It's going to be now is the time because you have to start seeing a little bit of growth next year. And then you need the playoff growth in 2022. So 2021 should be about competing for a playoff spot. And 2022 should be absolutely they're in the playoffs. And if Gase is here, then that's it for him. Now, whether he's here or not by then, I don't know. I also don't know about, I was talking to Ryan Dunleavy. We were doing the show earlier in the week, and he was talking about he didn't think Gase would last much longer. And I get the indication that that was because of the fan base. And that even though they're dealing with a lot of injuries, it's not totally his fault. The fan base is just incredible. It's incredibly against him. And it's going to be really hard to keep him because of that. And I would be very, very disappointed if that was the case. Now, I have no idea whether or not Joe feels Adam Gase deserves another game or another year and a half. I got no idea. But whatever he decides, as I've said before, I'm in. I'm all in, whatever he decides. And I hope that he has like the Brad Pitt mantra. I don't know if you remember in Moneyball, Brad Pitt. And he was in the living room of Scott Hatteberg. And something about it was, remember, he was a catcher and they're going to try to turn him into a first baseman, replacing Giambi. And Brad Pitt basically says because Hatteberg, the actor for Hatteberg, Star-Lord, said, well, what about the fans? And Brad Pitt replied, the fans don't run this team. I do. And that's what you want to hear from your GM. That's what I would want to hear from Joe Douglas. I don't care what they're saying about Adam Gase. I run this team. And it's the same way about me even commenting about Adam Gase on this team. It's the same thing. I don't care what the outside noise is regarding. I don't care that 90% of the fans, especially in New York, want him gone and think he's terrible. Don't care. When I believe that it's time for Adam Gase to go, when I've seen enough, I'm going to say it. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be right. Just what I believe. And I think it's a good time for me to remind everybody, because there's a lot of fans that haven't been here for years. I've been doing this for years. But just a few years ago, I don't know if you recall, it was the Todd Bowles days. And it was right around the time that it was the year after Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was the year after I felt that Ryan Fitzpatrick should have been gone, because I thought Ryan Fitzpatrick, the year that they went to, well, he wasn't going to be gone the year they almost went to the playoffs, but the year after they had that contract dispute, and I said, let him go, let all the veterans go. Who cares that they almost went to the playoffs and had 10 wins the year before? It was a mirage. They're not going to be any better. You are wasting time. And that's exactly what they did. They brought him back. They wasted time. They brought some other veterans back, and they figured, oh, we got so close, so let's go right back to it again. And I was staunchly against it. And they did it. And not only did they go another year, that year, with not with the players, but with Bowles, but they went even further with Bowles. They went 2 years further than I thought they should have. It was at that time that I said, and I actually have the copy here, because I don't post a lot of stuff, a lot of the things that I'll talk about, and I talked about it a few years ago. You could definitely find it up on the website library at Prime Sports Network. Okay, but this is what I wrote. Okay, again, this was late in 2016, and this was the wake up season after Todd Bowles' first year, 10-6. They dropped them to 5-11, and this is what I said. Why Woody Johnson? I said Woody Johnson needs to make a bold statement and hire either PJ Fleck, who was the head coach of Western Michigan, offensive coordinator for the Falcons, Kyle Shanahan, or Washington offensive coordinator, Sean McVay. Those are my choices. Okay? At that time, nobody thought that those three guys were going to be as thought of how they are now. What happened to PJ Fleck? He gets hired by Minnesota, 1 game away from winning or getting to the Big Ten championship game. And he was only there a couple of years. Shanahan, we all know. And by the way, Kyle Shanahan, 2 years. They trashed him in San Francisco. Wow, what happened one of those years? Oh, that's right. Injuries, quarterback injuries too. Didn't have the personnel. They trashed him anyway. But John Lynch didn't care. Stuck to his guns, like Shanahan. Boom. Now the rest is history. Washington offensive coordinator Sean McVay. Nobody knew who really he was at the time. He was the Washington offensive coordinator back then. And look what happened. He was 1 game away from winning a Super Bowl. Both McVay and Shanahan in the Super Bowl, losing consecutive years. So what do all 3 coaches have in common? I go over that. So I talked about this in the column, everything I just said, and also referenced the fact that one of the things that they all have in common is Fleck was 36. I said he was a 36-year-old charismatic Pete Carroll type, which, again, I wanted everybody to understand what they were dealing with here, knowing what we knew about Pete Carroll at the time. And that Shanahan was also 36, and he had the bloodlines of his father. And McVay, oh, by the way, Kyle Shanahan was coordinator under his dad in Washington when RG3 was offensive rookie of the year. So this is what I was referencing, trying to let everybody know why I liked him. And as far as McVay, talked about his bloodlines. His grandfather coached the New York Giants for 40 years. And I ended the column saying, and he developed Kirk Cousins into a $200 million quarterback. And I ended it, hey, could another McVay be coaching New York someday soon? Dare to dream, Jets fans, dare to dream. And my point in telling you all this should be obvious. I think Gase deserves whatever time that Joe Douglas decides to give him. That's it. And if Joe Douglas believes the job is too big for Adam Gase in a week or in 2 years, that's when I think you should trust Joe Douglas. And I also think it's kind of interesting that there's another former coach. Who would you say would be the last, the most previous Jet coordinator who was ripped as much or almost as much as Adam Gase has been ripped. Would that be Brian Schottenheimer? I think so. How's Brian Schottenheimer doing in Seattle this year? They have a pretty damn good offense. And you know why they have a pretty damn good offense? Because they have a pretty damn good quarterback and they have really good playmakers now. And I've said this is why I picked Seattle to be in the Super Bowl. Because Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in the NFL, but finally, because the last couple of years, oh, this offense is too boring, and but they were winning. And Pete Carroll, his objective was, yes, I always want to run the ball first, play defense, run the ball, that kind of thing. But they didn't have the personnel to throw the football, and now they have the personnel to throw the football. So just because they don't have the personnel doesn't mean that you don't pigeonhole the coach. Same thing with the quarterback. Now, having a great quarterback doesn't also always mean that the coach is good. Look at McCarthy, who, by the way, a lot of Jet fans want. And after last week's near should have lost because nobody recovers an onside kick, the Cowboys would be 0-2 right now. And you would see how quickly Dallas fans would be like on McCarthy. There's no, and yet most Jet fans wanted McCarthy and didn't want Gase. So I'll play that game all day long. I really will. I'll stick my neck out and play that game, who I'd still rather have between Gase and McCarthy. Don't like McCarthy. The point is that McCarthy won a Super Bowl, yet if you take a look at all the years he was there with Rodgers, they underachieved because they should have won more. Rodgers was too good of a player for them to go to one Super Bowl. That's it. That's all they did. They really didn't even get. It was just obvious that he wasn't good enough. That's the point, though. And I might, you probably are saying, well, aren't you just now criticizing Schottenheimer, saying, well, it's not about him, it's about the players? Yeah, but that's the point. The point is you don't know all the time. But what you do know is when you have the players, that's when you truly find out more than anything. See, you could say, yeah, but hey, Bill Belichick didn't have Brady the one year and he still had a lot of wins and so forth. Okay, but it was 1 year, and that was the year the Jets won the division. So say what you want about it. Belichick's a really good coach, but he didn't win in Cleveland. He won one out of 3 years in Cleveland. Gase won 1 out of 3 years in Miami, by the way, but he won 1 year out of 3 in Cleveland, and his great coaching went alongside great players. You have to, though, whether you're a quarterback that needs weapons or a coach that is going to coach players, you still have got to have a certain amount of those players. And the Jets do not have the players to be criticizing the coach right now. They don't. It's just not. And that's why, to me, everything about Gase is about 40 years of suffering and the ownership. And I know, by the way, just want to remind everybody that Leon Hess, first of all, Leon Hess was a great man. He may not have been a football guy, but he was a great man who was never he didn't interfere with, he let the football people run the team. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. He wasn't cheap. He was just, he let other people run the organization, even though probably football people, not the right way, because his football people weren't good football people. But the point is that eventually they got Bill Parcells. Okay. And the Bill Parcells situation was going to go to Bill Belichick. It wasn't the Jets organization that said, we don't want Belichick, or we don't want to pay him. We don't want to give him what he wants. And then you could criticize the Jets organization for it. It was Belichick who screwed the Jets. So if Belichick was with the Jets organization, as great as a coach as he is, and look, he wouldn't have this many wins without Brady if he was with the Jets. He just wouldn't. But he would still have a lot of wins. Maybe we'd have a Super Bowl win. Who knows? The direction would be a lot different. But to slam the Jets, like if they always do everything wrong, they didn't do anything wrong there. They did right. it was Belichick who didn't want the Jets. So it would have been from Parcells to Belichick, and instead, when Belichick screwed them, they were left with Algro. And it's been playing catch up ever since. But anyway, I understand why the fan base feels the way they do, but you have to just try and get away from it being about what happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 3 years ago has nothing to do with these three men. Okay? With Christopher, with Joe, and with Adam. This is what you grade these guys on. And when you look at the personnel that Joe Douglas and Adam Gase has had to put together, and because remember, we're dealing with a general manager that wants to take his time. If you guys out there want them to, I want to sign Robbie Anderson and Perryman, and I want to get Logan Ryan, and I want to get who knows what else you want. Well, that's the Mike McCagnon way. How did that work out? It didn't work out very well, did it? So instead, you now have a general manager that is going to take his time, that is going to build through the draft, that is going to make sure that not every player is going to fit with this organization. That takes time. That takes patience. That takes guts. You also got to also keep in mind that Joe Douglas, even right now, he's looking at what's going on. It's going to the receiving situation that we're going to feel there on Sunday. He knows Mims ain't going to be available for another couple of weeks. Crowder ain't going to play for another couple of weeks. Perryman now ain't going to play for a couple of weeks. But have you seen him pick up any receivers? Did you see him make any trades for anybody? No. And I'm sure it's because he's sitting back and he's going, hey, it's not about this year. Hey, I've got my 5 or 6 year contract. Christopher knows it. We all are being patient here. So Christopher's not going to have a phone call after the Jets get killed by the Colts on Sunday and go, what's going on? How come we're not winning? They completely understand. It's not about right now. We're not going to rush anything. We've got 2 first-round draft picks in the draft this year. And that's why I've said all along it's about Darnold. And you can't grade Darnold or Gates in the first 2 weeks when he doesn't have anybody to throw the football to. He's going to have Hogan, Berrios, and Josh Malone, and Chris Herndon, who can't make any plays anymore. Oh, and they're writing about, well, I think it was Canizero writing about, but Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury can get the ball to Hopkins, so Gates should be able to figure out a way to get the ball to Herndon. Come on. Look, he's gotten the ball to Herndon twice in 2 plays, and he screwed up both times. All right, so screw Chris Herndon. All right, he doesn't deserve to get the ball. Every time he gets the ball, he screws up. So I don't really care about Chris Herndon right now. It's not about Chris Herndon. But I do agree. I'd like to see some creativity. I would like to say, you know what, Adam, just go out there on Sunday and put Cager out there with Berrios and with with Malone and with Hogan, and put P. Ryan in the backfield and run your offense that way. I'd be fine with that. Spread them out. Do something different. I am with you on that. I think that is what, even though they don't have the personnel, hey, you know what? You don't have it, but and look, it's hard because when you didn't have the personnel in the preseason. Everybody's getting hurt. So you couldn't run your practices the certain way. And then you have to game plan teams. And when you can't get your team, you can't keep practicing players and get everybody in sync. That's the first step. But you couldn't do that because the second step after doing that is now game planning. But you lose the first step because you can't get any cohesiveness. And in the game planning, all of a sudden you're going, well, I can't get too creative because these guys, I don't even know if they can do the basic stuff. So I understand it. So even if he doesn't and he can't get creative on Sunday, I get why you're feeling he needs to do something. I do. I really do. But whether he can or not, I think Adam is saying, I don't know. I can't. I don't want to have Sam throw 5 interceptions. I don't want to lose 38-3. I'd rather look like we're 5 plays away, which I believe they were last Sunday, instead of looking like they were against the Bills in the first half. And it could look a lot worse on Sunday. Trust me, it can. Same thing goes for Greg Williams. And please, enough of my boy Leighton Hewitt. I know it's not his first name, but I'm going to call him Leighton Hewitt. Enough of it. He has the most snaps in the front seven of any other Jet defender, and it makes me sick. Oh, and I made a mistake on Williamson. It was Ogletree who missed the containment on the Mostert touchdown run. What is Alec Ogletree? A bust, a giant reject who just came into camp for the Jets. What is he doing playing as many snaps as he did? Oh my goodness gracious. Why are the linebackers getting as many reps as the defensive linemen on this team? Why? The defensive linemen are more talented. The linebackers on this team are terrible. Why is Alec Ogletree all of a sudden a primary? Why didn't you just sign James Burgess? He's on the street. You know who he is. I'd rather have him than Alec Ogletree. So, Greg Williams needs a lot of criticism too, just like Adam Gase. If you want to give it to Gase, you better be giving it to Greg Williams. And I'm going to close out with this. Jets mentality, because I'm going to use this a lot. You want to know what it is? It's a Jet fan base mentality, describing how Jets fans can be influenced by the sports media to adopt certain behaviors, like it's all Adam Gase's fault. Same old Jets, on a largely emotional, rather rational basis. So Jets mentality, I'm going to speak a lot about that because I think it fits. I really do. I want to thank Jake Arthur from Colts.com for joining us. We're going to talk Jets football on Sunday after the game on Sunday night. I can't wait.